the smaller one. I'm gonna start at like 4 o'clock. I'm gonna start anyway, and then Brenda. More coming. Stop everybody off. All right. Everybody hear me okay? Cool. We're gonna start with some of the intro stuff because people are still coming, but we want to get going. This won't be the AI stuff, but more how to get in touch with Microsoft. So, and sorry for my kid being here if she's a little noisy, but it's school holiday. So. All right, I'm Michael. I want to just cover a few things that about Microsoft, what we offer, because a lot of us ask us about the OpenAI stuff, and it's actually in the Microsoft program. So usually people come up and always asking this and that. I'm going to answer that at the beginning, and then the rest of it will dig into the talk about AI. So I'm Microsoft. I run the Microsoft startup team for APAC. We're a group of people in Singapore, Indonesia, and Vietnam that kind of cover the market. We have a program that's called Microsoft for Startups. It's just startups.microsoft.com. It's free for any startup. Regardless, even if you're incorporated yet or whatever, you can get into it at a certain level. And it's a credits program that has all the Microsoft stuff in it, plus has all the OpenAI access that is a little more streamlined than if you try to get to OpenAI directly. The other thing I put, if you're in a jam and you're trying to figure some things out, you can copy that email down, that'll come to my team. And then I also run weekly office hours to help people with like getting in the program, you have technical questions, something like that. So, and all this stuff is free. So, yeah, go ahead, next slide. Next one.
Sorry, Michael, could you just go back?
Yeah, sorry. You guys, let everybody take photos. Go back to the front. My bad. Everybody take a photo. We'll make sure that they have this deck too. So, because we're not trying to hide any of this stuff. And this one you can do about 25 people in it per week, and it's on a rolling week. So. I also do startup coaching. I have some Calendly links for that. If you email, I'll email you back on that, which is just kind of a free thing I do. So what Microsoft's trying to do is just really give people what I call the Microsoft stack end-to-end for free for startups. So and it's not just Azure. It's like Outlook. It's Power BI. It's GitHub. It's LinkedIn. A lot of people probably don't know GitHub is Microsoft, LinkedIn is Microsoft. So we've taken all these things and put them into the program. And it's all pretty much free. Go ahead. Yeah, so stop here, go back. Yeah, where's the one with the amounts? Or was it? Next one. Yeah, one more. All right, so this is kind of the basics of it. I'll just run through so people know what I'm talking about. So if you get into the program, which most people will get in unless you're doing something fraudulent with your application, over a certain period of time, you can get up to 150K in Azure credits, which is the cloud stuff, and you get all these tools wrapped up in it. And to kind of answer what this means from an OpenAI perspective, in the early stages of the program, you get what we call OpenAI tokens. If you played with OpenAI, it's a token-based system. And that you get so many tokens to go play with it in the early levels of the program. When you graduate to like level 3, level 4, people say, well, what is graduation? Use the Azure stuff. A lot of people are pinging me and saying, I'm doing everything but the cloud, help me out. Sorry, I can't. So if you kind of want to talk to me about getting OpenAI, but you want to stay on AWS, sorry, can't help you. Because that's not how it works, right? But what I will tell you, you're going to get nowhere from any other of the competitors. When you get into this bucket of money, you can use that to use Azure OpenAI. So you literally have the largest block of money possible in the entire ecosystem to get at Azure OpenAI, which is pretty much unparalleled. I think the most you can get from OpenAI themselves is about 25K. So, but you have to use the stuff. Because a lot of people email me and say, I can't get it to work. You're not using the cloud.
So just a follow-up question that
Yeah.
you play with the OpenAI tokens first, but you want to move to the Microsoft one?
Yeah, so we
changing code necessary?
So yeah, I mean, it is going to be different for sure because the OpenAI stuff is like an API. He can get into this a little bit. The Azure stuff is going to be on your own tenant, but the facilities are largely the same. But you have to change some of the API calls to be calling Azure OpenAI. But you can also get way more like sophisticated. You can import the model and actually do your own training on it and all that. He'll get into some of this. So we know for the size of this session, and I'm probably guessing with the different levels of people, this thing's going to be like maybe over some people's head when we get really into it, or other people are going like, I've done this before, right? It's really hard to cover this subject, but what we're going to do is like a history lesson on the subject. We'll tell you about how these learning models work, and then we'll jump into actually how to use them. But my suggestion is like, you'll just want to sign up to this program and start playing around and reading the docs, because this can be complicated stuff. The basics like ChatGPT and doing some chat, great. Actually building something with it, that's a whole nother thing. But we're going to cover all of the bases. So the way the program works, and then I'm done, is when you get in at the lowest level, we just kind of have this 1K thing. These levels are graduations. You burn these credits, you get to the next level. You burn these credits, you get to the next level. If you're serious, you have to be an incorporated startup actually using Azure to get to this level, because that's how we look at it. And then also, like, if you're actually at this level and you remember those emails, you can ping us and we can help you out if something's up, right? But there actually is support in the program, and there's a bunch of ways for you to get help kind of outside of us. You have another question? No, all right. And then what we have is a bunch of other what we call partner benefits that are in the thing. It's not just OpenAI, it's a bunch of other things. Go to the next one. We don't really need to go through this. It's just that what we do outside of the cloud stuff is the other products are seat-based licensing, like GitHub, Visual Studio, and things like that. So it's a little bit different than like all you can eat kind of thing. It'll be how you'll get so many for the size of your company. And then the OpenAI stuff is the tokens in the beginning. So, but there's a bunch of other benefits. Go to the next page. There's a bunch of other things from other partners, and then there's all the different Microsoft stuff. So, but the online side, startups at Microsoft.com will list all this stuff out. It's a pretty simple form. You can get it done in about 10 minutes. It requires you to log in via LinkedIn. That's how we do the verification. And again, if you're not doing anything fraudulent, you'll get in, right? What I mean by that is people are like trying to do multiple applications. They're trying to game the system. That's one guy with 7 startups. The system will figure that out and you'll get ejected. And then I'll have a hard time getting you back in, right? So just play by the rules. It's one person, one startup. So that's a founder to their startup. That's basically how the system works. If you're trying to do something else with it, it eventually isn't going to work for you. Yeah, that's really it. What's one more thing? Go ahead. I'm done. So yeah, so I'll go back to this at the beginning if you didn't get photos, and just understand that this email will get you help if you need some help. Everybody that signed up is here. You have to log in with LinkedIn when you go to do this. And this is just what I run weekly to get some help, right? We can't be your tech support. Let's be really clear. If you're emailing me code and saying troubleshoot my open, I'm going to say ask ChatGPT to troubleshoot for you. That's what it's really good at. But what we can help you with is like problems with the program, maybe some basic ideas of some things you're trying to do. Sometimes Pradeep will join me for the office hours to take the really technical stuff. But if it's a little bit more serious than that, and you're a serious startup, and you're funded, and you want to meet with us, we're happy to do that, right? But I can't like answer every single question because someone says, help me with this code, help me with that, because people do try to do that. I can't keep up, right? We see about 200 to 300 companies coming through this program per month. So what we try to do is just scale the program and make ourselves available. But we can't kind of like troubleshoot things or figure out why your server's not running and stuff like that. That's not what we do. So with that, I'll leave it and introduce Pradeep. Pradeep's on my team as like my head CTO. All of us have kind of worked around what we're trying to do with this stuff, but he's done just an amazing job with this content. We've used it in a couple different things, but what we're really trying to do is give people a little bit of the history, because that'll help you answer like why this does what it does. and then start explaining to you like how you could use it and the various ways that it could be used. And then from that, you can kind of figure out like, how does this work for you? Because I think different startups are going to use this stuff differently, right? So without further ado, over to you. You want this thing?
Can you hear me well, or you need me to switch mic?
Always better.
Better.
Yeah, then you don't have to go.
You got your thing? Cool.
Is it better now? Better? Yeah. Cool. Okay, thank you, Michael. And my name is Pradeep Menon, and I'm the CTO for startups for Microsoft. My expertise is mainly in the field of big data, AI, and then I've done a bunch of stuff in cloud computing as well. What I'm doing here is helping Microsoft for all these startups out there to leverage OpenAI better.
Can we just leave it open for the night?
Okay, so let's get going. So what we, it's a packed thing. I think we have around 1 hour, so I will try to cover as much as I can in this 1 hour. So what we will start is to just to give you a feel of why this is an important, I would say, platform shift, right? So, and why is there a buzz out there with generative AI? We'll start there and then slowly pick up pace on giving you a brief history of how did we land where we are now, and then get onto some of the depths of how LLMs work, what is prompting, what is fine tuning, and then zoom in a bit more on what we are doing with startups on how do you apply this new tech into their products and so on, right? Before I go further, I just want to get a view, right? How many of you have, and I mean, know this generative AI quite deep? Anyone? Know it quite deep? That's good. So you will see things which you have already seen. Okay. And how many of the startups have already started incorporating or thinking that how can I use this in my offerings? Cool. Anyone wants to share how they are doing it briefly? Anyone? You want to share? Yes.
My name is James. We run a marketing company and speaking company. So we run ads. So how we use ChatGPT is mainly for marketing copies,
Okay.
and ideation for social media ads, social media campaigns, and as well as image generative like Midjourney and RE
Yeah. Okay.
to do ads. Yeah, that's right.
So, so for content generation.
Mainly content generating.
Perfect. Anyone else?
My name is Adi from Epitome. We run an analytics consultation team,
Okay.
and we are interested mainly in embedding,
Embedded.
human embedding.
Got it. You will see some of those here. Cool. So let's get going. So this is, I mean, a kind of a platform shift, right? So we are in AI arms race now. Microsoft is there, Google is there, AWS is there. Who is going to get there first? We have some headway, right? Now it is also very important to get an understanding that this is a platform shift, right? Now when a platform shift occurs, there are three key, I would say, emergence. Number one, it has the potential to disrupt industries, and it is already doing it. Number two is that it has rapid adoption of the tech, which is already happening as part of GPT. And number three is that it brings in new business models and new skills. So we have now new skills like prompt engineers, right, which is becoming the next hot thing. So, and we have seen this in past, right? And so if you look at the first one, 1977, we had the personal computing. Computing became personal. There was explosion of new skills, new adoption, and it changed a lot of industries. The second thing we saw was the advent of internet that paved the way to search engines, and then we had new e-commerce, we had startup, I mean the bubble burst and so on. So that was platform shift number two. And third one we saw 2007 when Steve Jobs walked in and said that I'm going to change the way smartphones are smarter by having iPhone. Right? So it had a new app ecosystem, the supply chains were disrupted. Then we also had the shift to ML commerce. So this shift is something very similar, where we are saying that, okay, generative AI is going to transform a lot of industries, which you will see how. So there is education that is going to be disrupted for sure. There is medical tech, then content generation, copywriting. Even I'm seeing that it could be used for film production and so on. Right? So there is a lot of potential for this new tech to disrupt the industries. So let's talk about how did we get here, right? Because it is always important for us to get a view, a real view of what it took to get here. So as per DARPA, there are three eras of AI, right? So first one is mainly rule-based. So here it started all the way since I think 1951, where there was many rule-based algorithms. One of them is called as PRINCE. So what it does is it is very simple. It is creating rules to understand how chess works. So that was 1951, long time ago. And then we had our first speech to text called as Audrey by Bell Labs, 1952, I believe. So what it does is simple. It is able to recognize the speech of 0 to 9 numbers. If I say 0, it knows you are saying 0. So that was in 1952. And after that, the challenge was that because the computing power was limited, the data was limited, we went through a phase called as AI winter. And then it picked up again in 89, wherein we had new chips and so on that could accelerate the way AI can be used. And then we had our classic ML prediction, classification, regression, and so on, that kind of took stage. But still, it was very contained in the specific domain. Then with 2009, as and when we have search engines, a lot of data, the resurgence of deep learning came with something which all of you know called as artificial neural networks, right? So they had multiple layers. You could have computer vision, speech to text, all these things accelerated at scale. And then in 2017, something changed. Anyone can tell me? You should know it, right? Transformer. So there was a paper launched by Google called as Attention is All You Need. So what it did was to introduce a new kind of architecture called as transformer, which is the basis of what GPT and all other LLMs are. I will cover that a bit as well. So let's look at some of the journey from a text point of view, right? So if you look at 1954, we had an algorithm called as BOW, bag of words. It is still used in spam to find which makes a spam and so on. What it does is simple.